Imagine spending your whole life trying to fit in. You start shaping how you speak, how you dress, how you choose your words, your friendships, your paths, all to be accepted, to feel like you belong, to avoid disappointment. Without realizing it, you bend to expectations that aren't always your own. You silence yourself when you should express. Push forward when everything inside begs for rest. You say yes with a smile when your whole body screams no. And little by little, this effort to please, to conform, to not upset, begins to erase your essence. You're still there, but more distant from yourself each time, like an echo of who you once were. It's as if we're constantly performing before an invisible jury, a tribunal that shifts its face, its voice, its standards, depending on the era, the place, the social circle. It's the gaze of family, friends, the internet, strangers, and we start shaping ourselves for these gazes, trying to keep everything under control, trying not to make mistakes, not to stumble, not to stray from the line. We believe, even if unconsciously, that if we do everything right, we'll be rewarded with love, respect, safety. But this is a dangerous illusion, because what those outside eyes approve of changes all the time, and following that game is exhausting, frustrating, and worse, it takes us away from what's genuine. Have you ever stopped to ask how many of your choices are truly your own? How many decisions were made out of fear of rejection rather than genuine desire? How many paths did you leave unexplored because someone might not understand, approve, or applaud? Michel de Montaigne, a 16th century French philosopher, saw all of this with remarkable clarity. While the world outside collapsed into conflict, wars, and crises, he chose a quieter path. He withdrew to his tower, surrounded by books, silence, and reflection. It wasn't escape. It was a radical act of lucidity. He wanted to observe the human soul up close, far from the noise of the world, and the more he observed himself, the more he saw that the root of many pains was this constant effort to appear, to please, to control. Montaigne didn't write to seem wise, he wrote to understand himself. And in this deeply honest gesture, he ended up creating a work that transcended centuries. Because he spoke of something we all feel, the anxiety of trying to control what cannot be controlled, the insecurity of depending on others' approval, the fear of not being enough, of being rejected, forgotten. In one of his essays, he says, "My life has been full of terrible misfortunes, most of which never happened." This sentence confronts us with the truth that we suffer more from anticipation than reality itself. We worry about scenarios that may never come to pass, and in doing so, we waste what's most precious, our time, our energy, our peace. How many times have you lost sleep over things that never became real? How many times have you rehearsed full conversations in your mind, trying to predict reactions, control outcomes, protect yourself from possible failure? It's like trying to navigate life with an imaginary GPS, one that promises safety but only causes stress. Deep down, what we all seek is lightness, freedom, an inner space where we can simply exist without having to prove anything. But the paradox is this: the more you try to control, the more things slip away. The more you force, the more complicated everything becomes. And the more you demand perfection, the further you drift from your humanity. Letting go in this sense doesn't mean giving everything up. It means learning to release what weighs you down, what holds you back, what no longer serves. It means looking inward and realizing that not everything needs to be solved, fixed, or mastered. Sometimes all we need is to let things be, to stop resisting so much, to trust that life has its own flow, one that doesn't depend solely on our will. Letting go is understanding that what's true stays, and what leaves may have never been essential. It's a movement of wisdom, not carelessness, a gesture of maturity, not abandonment. Montaigne understood this deeply. After nearly dying in a horseback accident, he was forced to face life's fragility. Nothing, absolutely nothing, could have protected him from that random event. No plan, no worry, no armor. And it was in that moment, paradoxically, that he grasped something fundamental. Living isn't about controlling everything. It's about learning to dance with the unexpected. It's accepting that greater forces are at play, and that by aligning with them, we find peace. He wrote, Not out of obligation, but out of curiosity. Not to be recognized, but to understand oneself. That simplicity is revolutionary because it takes us out of the role of tense protagonists and places us as conscious witnesses of our own journey. Today, more than ever, we need to reclaim this wisdom. We live in a time where everything must have a purpose, an outcome, external validation. But life is not a performance project. It is an experience of presence. And presence isn't achieved through excessive effort, but through surrender, through listening, through silence. When you let go of control, you begin to hear what was always there, your inner voice, your truth, your rhythm, and everything starts to make more sense. Relationships become lighter, choices become clearer, days become more honest, and it's in human relationships that letting go reveals its real strength. How many times have you tried to mold someone to fit your expectations? How many times have you felt frustrated for not receiving exactly what you imagined from another person? Montaigne saw clearly that suffering in relationships doesn't come from differences, but from our desire to control, from our fear of loss, from the insecurity that turns the other into a mirror of our own unmet needs. He had a deep friendship with Etienne de la Boétie, a bond without demands, without ownership, based only on presence. And it was this connection that showed him true love doesn't imprison, it allows, it welcomes, it walks beside. This kind of connection is only possible when two people are free to be who they are, when there's no need to please, to convince, to hold on. And this applies not only to friendships and romances, but to all relationships, family, work, social. The more lightness there is in the bond, the more it flourishes. The fewer expectations we place on others, the more we make space for the unexpected. Letting go is not the absence of connection. It is respect for the other's freedom. And paradoxically, this is what strengthens the bond. Because where there is freedom, there is trust. Where there is trust, there is truth. And where there is truth, peace is born. In the end, Montaigne shows us that true power doesn't lie in controlling everything, but in becoming so whole that there's no longer a need to control. It's a quiet, steady, gentle power. It's the strength of someone who doesn't need to impose themselves, because they're already at peace with who they are. When you release the weight of pleasing, of proving, of appearing, you begin to walk more lightly. And that lightness isn't superficial. It's deep, steady, transformative, because it comes from a place of truth. And now I invite you to reflect. What are you still holding on to so tightly that it's begun to hurt? What idea, expectation, or fear could you let go of today? Maybe by releasing that weight, you'll make space for something new, lighter, more authentic. Share in the comments your own experience with letting go. It can be something small or big. Every story matters. And who knows, by sharing what you've lived, you might inspire someone who's going through something similar. If this message touched you in any way, like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear this, and subscribe to the channel. Let's continue this journey of self-awareness, lightness, and freedom, together with courage, presence, and soul. See you in the next video.